All right, so we're diving into Pattaya's nightlife, and specifically these two spots, LK Metro and Soi Buakhao.
Yeah, these are areas that I think a lot of people have heard of, but maybe don't fully understand all of the nuances.
Yeah, I think a lot of listeners know Pattaya as, the place to go for certain kinds of entertainment, but
Right.
we're gonna kind of go beyond that and look at the culture, the vibe, what makes these two areas tick.
Absolutely. I think that's really important.
So let's start with LK Metro.
Yeah.
This is a place that is definitely known for its red light district.
Yeah.
But I've been there. It's smaller, it's more compact. There's a certain energy there.
There's definitely an energy. And I think for people who are looking for that kind of, a concentrated version of Pattaya's nightlife,
Yeah.
LK Metro is where they go.
And it's different from Walking Street, which a lot of people know about, right?
Very different. Yeah. Walking Street is much more spread out, much more
Yeah.
kind of a variety of things, whereas LK Metro is very much focused on a specific type of entertainment.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when they hear about LK Metro, they think go-go bars.
Right.
That's the main attraction there.
Absolutely. That's the heart of LK Metro.
But there's also, kind of a cultural aspect to it. There's a certain way things are done.
Yeah, there are certain customs, certain traditions that are important to understand.
So, for example, like lady drinks.
Mm-hmm.
You see that a lot in these places.
Yeah, and it's not just about buying someone a drink. It's actually a way for the dancers to earn their living.
Right.
It's a commission-based system, and it's a way for them to interact with customers and essentially, conduct business.
It's a part of their job.
Exactly. It's part of the whole system.
And then there's also this concept of bar fines, which I think can be a little bit confusing for people who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, bar fines can be a little bit misunderstood. I think sometimes people think it's just this, kind of a bribe or something.
Right.
But it's actually a very formalized system. It's basically a fee that you pay to the bar if you want to spend time with one of the dancers outside of the club environment.
Right, so it's like you're compensating the bar for the dancer's time.
Exactly. And it's crucial that everything is transparent and agreed upon
Yeah.
by both parties. There are terms like short time for a few hours or long time for the whole night.
Right, and I guess it's important to emphasize that this is all about mutual agreement and respect.
Absolutely, 100%. This is not about exploitation or taking advantage of anyone.
Yeah.
It's about adults making their own choices and having a system in place that is clear and understood by everyone involved.
So LK Metro's got that energy, it's compact, it's focused, but then you've got Soi Buakhao, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, Soi Buakhao is much more spread out. It's more of a street with a mix of open-air bars,
Yeah.
nightclubs, live music venues.
Yeah, and you've got everything from rock bands to DJs to more traditional Thai music.
Yeah, it's a really eclectic mix.
So it's a little more laid back, I guess, than LK Metro.
I'd say so. Yeah, the atmosphere is definitely more relaxed. It's more about strolling around. Yeah.
Checking out different places, maybe grabbing some street food, and then, maybe hitting up a go-go bar later on.
Right. So there's still that element of the red light district, but it's not the sole focus.
Exactly. It's just one part of the overall experience.
And within Soi Buakhao, there's this newer place, Tree Town, that's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, Tree Town is interesting. It's kind of a modern take on the Pattaya experience.
Yeah.
It's a complex with a blend of bars, restaurants,
Yeah.
a food court, and of course, go-go bars.
I mean, they've got it all there, right?
They do. It's all in one place.
And it's got that fresher feel to it. It's not, some of those older places can be a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely more modern, more upscale.
Yeah. And it seems to be attracting a bit of a different crowd too.
Yeah, I think it appeals to people who are looking for a more controlled environment.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more sophisticated.
Like a little more, maybe younger crowd or.
Yeah, possibly. And also, I think locals are drawn to it as well.
Interesting.
It's a place where they can go and feel comfortable. So it's like they've taken the best of what Pattaya has to offer and put it in this.
Yeah, they've kind of packaged it up in a nice, neat little environment.
Now, all this talk of nightlife, it's making me thirsty. So let's talk about the practicalities here.
Yeah, good point.
What are we looking at price-wise when it comes to drinks in these areas?
Well, one of the things that makes Pattaya's red light district so popular is that the drinks are generally very affordable.
Yeah.
You can get a beer for around 80 to 150 baht.
Okay.
Lady drinks, which we talked about earlier, those usually run about 150 to 250 baht.
Okay.
And then cocktails and imported drinks will, of course, be a bit pricier.
So you're not going to break the bank having a good time.
You can definitely have a fun night out without spending a fortune.
And what about tipping? Is that expected, appreciated, or?
Tipping isn't mandatory in Thailand, but it's always appreciated.
Okay.
Especially in those smaller bars. And for good service, think of it as a gesture of goodwill.
Yeah.
A way to show your appreciation for the staff. Even a small tip can go a long way.
All right, so we've got the drinks, we've got the tipping, but now let's talk about the other side of this, the safety aspect.
Right. Safety is always important no matter where you are.
Especially in these areas.
Especially in these areas because, you've got a lot of tourists, you've got a lot of people who are maybe not as familiar with the surroundings.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some things to be aware of.
So what are some tips for staying safe, avoiding scams, and just making sure you have a good time?
I'd say the number one thing is to agree on prices up front.
Yeah.
Whether it's for a drink, a bar fine, or anything else.
Right, don't be afraid to ask.
Exactly. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
Be wary of anyone who approaches you aggressively or tries to pressure you into anything.
That's good advice.
And trust your instincts. If a situation feels uncomfortable, just walk away.
Yeah.
You don't owe anyone anything.
Okay. Any other practical tips that people should keep in mind?
Yeah, a few things. Watch your tab closely.
Uh-huh.
Don't flash large sums of cash, and keep an eye on your belongings.
Okay. Especially in those crowded areas.
Common sense stuff.
Yeah, just common sense precautions, but they can make a big difference.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at LK Metro, that compact, energetic place. We've got Soi Buakhao, which is more spread out, more diverse. And then we've got Tree Town, which is kind of like the new kid on the block.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how these areas are all different, but they all offer a glimpse into the world of Pattaya's red light districts.
Yeah, and they all have their own unique character, their own vibe.
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
And it seems like they're constantly evolving, too.
Oh, absolutely. These places are always changing. They're responding to trends, to tourism, to the economy.
Yeah.
It's a very dynamic environment.
So what are your overall impressions of these districts so far?
Well, I think what strikes me is the contrast. You've got LK Metro, which is very focused, very intense. And then you've got Soi Buakhao, which is more laid back, more about exploration. And then you've got Tree Town, which is kind of this modern take on the whole thing. Yeah, it's like they each offer a different flavor of the Pattaya experience.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes it so interesting.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, take a moment to think about these different areas. What images come to mind? What feelings do they evoke? And we'll be back to explore them even further.
Yeah, there's a lot more to uncover. It's funny, you know how these red light districts are often seen as, kind of seedy or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're actually these really fascinating hubs of cultural exchange.
Yeah, it's like a global crossroads,
Yeah, exactly.
You've got tourists from all over the world, expats, locals, all mixing together.
And there's a certain code of conduct, a certain set of norms that governs how everyone interacts.
Yeah, like we were talking about the lady drinks before.
Right, that's just one example, but it goes beyond that. It's about understanding the context, the history.
Yeah, like the bar fine system that's been around for ages.
Yeah, it's a big part of how these places operate.
But I can see how it would be confusing for someone who's not familiar with it.
Definitely, it's important to approach it with sensitivity and a willingness to learn.
Yeah.
Understand that it's not just about money, it's about respecting the dancer's time.
Right, and their agency.
Exactly.
It's easy to forget that we're talking about real people here.
Absolutely. They have their own lives, their own aspirations.
And it's interesting how these districts are always evolving.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about Tree Town.
Tree Town is a great example of that. It's modern, it's diverse.
Yeah.
It seems to be attracting a different crowd.
What do you think that says about the future of entertainment in Pattaya?
That's a good question. I think it suggests a desire for something more upscale, maybe a little more controlled.
Like they've taken the essence of Pattaya and kind of repackaged it?
Yeah, in a more contemporary way.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to see how that influences the other venues,
Yeah.
if they start to adapt.
So it shows how adaptable these districts are.
Definitely.
They're not static.
No, they're constantly responding to changes in tourism, social trends.
The economy.
Exactly.
What advice would you give someone who's planning their first trip to Pattaya's red light districts?
I would say do your research.
Yeah?
Familiarize yourself with the areas, the customs, what to expect.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely, especially in an environment that can be a little overwhelming.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, talk to locals, expats, other travelers.
Get some insights.
And remember, it's okay to just observe.
Yeah.
You don't have to participate in everything.
Sometimes the best experiences are just about soaking it all in.
Exactly.
These districts are truly a sensory overload.
They are the lights, the music, the mix of languages. It's all very stimulating.
And the smells.
Oh yeah, the street food, the cocktails.
It's a whole experience.
It really is.
But for me, it's the human element that's most fascinating.
I agree.
The interactions, the stories, the glimpses into different lives.
That's what makes these districts so compelling. They're not just entertainment zones, they're communities.
With their own rhythms.
Yeah, stories.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I will leave our listeners with a thought.
Okay.
How these red light districts, with all their complexities and contradictions,
Yeah.
reflect the changing dynamics of tourism and entertainment in a globalized world.
That's something to ponder as we move into the final part of our exploration.
You know, as we wrap up this look at Pattaya's red light districts, I'm struck by how much my perspective has shifted.
Yeah, it's really easy to have these preconceived notions about these places.
Yeah, you think you know what they're all about.
But when you really delve into it, you realize there's so much more going on.
It's like we've peeled back the layers.
Exactly.
We've talked about the cultural nuances, the economic factors, the safety concerns.
Yeah,
But it all comes back to the human element for me.
absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the spectacle, the lights, the noise.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that these are real people with their own stories, their own lives.
And that brings us to something we've touched on throughout this deep dive. The importance of respect.
Yes, respect for the people, the customs, the whole environment.
Exactly, and I think that's especially crucial when we're talking about an area like this,
Definitely.
where there can be a lot of judgment, a lot of misunderstanding. You know, not everyone is going to agree with or condone everything that happens in these red light districts.
Right.
But I think it's important to approach it with an open mind,
Absolutely.
to try to understand the complexities,
Yeah.
the gray areas.
You know, the choices that people make are often influenced by factors that we might not be aware of.
Exactly. So it's not about condoning or condemning.
Right.
It's about trying to understand.
Exactly.
And that understanding leads to empathy,
Yeah,
which ultimately makes us better, more informed global
I
citizens.
agree.
So as we wrap up our exploration of LK Metro Soi Buakhao and the rise in Tree Town, what's the one takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
I'd say it's this approach, these districts, and really any unfamiliar territory with an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to learn.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
You might be surprised by the connections you make, the stories you hear, the understanding you gain.
Well said. And on that note, we encourage you, our listeners, to keep exploring, to keep learning, and to keep engaging with the world around you.
Because the more we understand, the more we connect, and the richer our lives become.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Pattaya's nightlife.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Don't forget to leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing travel content. Your support helps us grow and bring you even more hidden gems in Pattaya. See you in the next video.